Hello everyone, my name is Matt Wood and I am the Engagement Director for Moving Parts Newcastle Puppetry Festival. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're so excited to welcome you to the third in our 2021 Talks with Practitioners series, A Conversation with Nik Palmer. This event is produced by Moving Parts Arts as part of Newcastle Puppetry Festival 2021. We believe puppetry is for everyone, which is why free and subsidised theatre is central to what we do. Our entire online programme this year is Pay What You Feel, to make sure that everyone can access theatre and puppetry no matter their circumstances. Since 2017, our award-winning festival, community projects and puppet school have trained young people and adults, given opportunities to artists and reached tens of thousands of audience members with the magic of puppetry. But we cannot cover the costs of running these events without your support. We need to raise a further £2,000 to break even on our costs, so if you can, please donate now to support this event and the rest of our programme. The link to donate is movingpartsarts.com/donate, or you can click the handy Donate Here button if you're joining us on Crowdcast. Suggested donation for this event is £8, but please give whatever you can afford. In a small organisation like ours, every penny really does count, so thank you so much for donating. So just before we get started and welcome Nik to your screens, I'll just let you know about some of the highlights from our upcoming festival programme. There's one more Talks with Practitioners event coming up after this one next week on Tuesday 17th of August. We welcome Star Wars film and TV puppeteer Brian Herring to close the Talks programme. Meet the puppeteer behind BB-8 as well as many other household favourites including Spitting Image. Also make sure to check out our last remaining Scratch Stream event where artists from around the world will premiere brand new puppet theatre performances. This final one is this coming Friday the 13th of August at 7 p.m, featuring puppets from Sands in Wales, York and the Netherlands. Details of all these events can be found at movingpartsarts.com/what's on. Last but not least, you may have heard about our most ambitious project to date, Tyne Rising, an outdoor theatre spectacle for all the family at City Stadium, Newcastle at the end of August. The River Tyne has overflowed its banks, mysterious creatures and unknown forces are unleashed. The people of Tyneside must search their souls and work together to find out how to bring the world back into balance. Through giant puppetry, costumed ensembles, live music and landscape spectacles led by Thingamajig Theatre's Andrew Kim, this live, one weekend only performance will be a memorable outdoor experience for extraordinary times. Live in-person tickets have now been booked up for Tyne Rising, but you can still watch the performance by signing up for free to our online stream, which will be aired on the 31st of August at 7 p.m. And the link for that is movingpartsarts.com/Tyne Rising. If you're local to Newcastle, we're still looking for volunteers to make this event happen. Be part of the largest puppet show Newcastle has ever seen by signing up today at movingpartsarts.com/volunteer. Get a free team t-shirt, catered lunch and watch the show for free. Now, during the talk with Nik this evening, please do get involved. If you would like to ask Nik something, we'd really love to hear your questions. So please click the Ask a Question button in the bottom bar of your screens or just type in the chat. We can't promise to have time for all questions, but we will do our best. Our festival director, Karen, is managing the questions and the chat, so make sure you say hi and interact in there. And if you're watching from Facebook, you can comment below the stream as we're keeping an eye there as well. Right, so that's all the admin out of the way. Without further ado, let's get to the reason that we're all here, Nik Palmer. Nik has been surrounded by puppets his entire life. Born to Ray and Joan DaSilva, founders of Norwich Puppet Theatre, Nik was taken on his first international tour at the age of 6 months. Now, 58 years later, Nik is a multi-award winning puppeteer who has performed worldwide. 3 years ago, Nik decided to explore what CAD and 3D printed technology could bring to puppet design and construction. The result has been some highly articulated and unique puppets named Filabods, which have been selling worldwide over the past year. Welcome, Nik.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to see you.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. We've just been on a mini tour. I'm a bit tired. We've been down south. We're based at Upfront Puppet Theatre at the moment, up in Cumbria. Apologies for the dodgy internet connection. I hope it's going to hold up. We're a bit out in the sticks here.
Well, you're looking fine right now, so that's all good. And I hear you've been performing at Pride Festival.
Yeah, we had great audiences for Dangerous Dave at the Swindon and Wiltshire Pride event. Yeah, it was riotous.
Amazing. I could imagine it going down really well there. And if you haven't seen Dangerous Dave, you can watch it on Nik's website. Is it noisyoyster.com?
Yeah, noisyoyster.co.uk. Yes, there's a clip from when we were on the Slammer on there that you can see.
Yes, brilliant. CBBC. So that is your company. Noisy Oyster, right? But we're here to kind of talk about something related to that, which is kind of your endeavours in 3D printed puppets. So just to start, give a little bit of background to you. I know we've got into a little bit of that in the introduction, but kind of how you've arrived at this in your puppet journey.
Sure. Well, I've always been a puppet maker all my life, and I like to explore different materials. I've done a lot with clay, plaster, latex, and various plastics, as well as big puppets with ease, and also welding and stuff like that. But so I thought I'd take a look at 3D printing. I didn't know anything about it. I first got into it because I was trying to make some rollers for a little moving conveyor belt for a show, and I couldn't get them accurate enough. And I thought, well, 3D printing's got to be a very accurate means of reproducing these things. So I looked into it, and to my surprise, it was a lot more affordable than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to cost me in the region of £2,000 for a machine, but I found a decent kit that I could put together for about £250 and started my adventure from there. Really, there was lots of problems along the way, but I've learned a lot, and I'd encourage anybody to take the same journey.
Right, that's amazing. I didn't realise you could get them so cheaply. So if you get them pre-made, they're a bit more expensive, but if you're willing to put the time in, you can. Yeah.
I've got 3 machines now. The first one was, as I say, about £250 for a kit that took me a good 2 or 3 days to put together. Lots and lots of parts. My second one I actually bought. It was a lot more pre-made. That was about £450 and worked pretty much straight out of the box. I recently bought a third machine for about £280, and I've been amazed at how good it's been. Really, it's been really reliable and printed really well, pretty much straight off. So yeah,
brilliant.
It's a lot more.
We'll talk about the sort of costs of materials and stuff in a moment, but I think it will be helpful first of all to kind of show everyone what we're talking about with 3D printing, just in case you're not so familiar with it. So you've sent me a couple of these videos. Let me just turn that.
Yeah. So the machine on the left, that was my first printer that I put together. I've since modified it a bit and adapted it to print different materials at hotter temperatures. It's kind of like a thing that 3D printing people do. They buy a machine and then they immediately start printing parts to modify the machine. So the machine kind of builds itself in a way which is quite strange.
So technically, what's happening here then?
Okay, so it's obviously printing a bit. These machines are called Fdm printers. It's an additive manufacturing process where a spool of plastic is heated up and pushed through a little tiny nozzle to build up objects layer by layer. The original design is a computer model, which is then put into a software called a slicer software, which generates the instructions for the printer as to how it's how to be printed. The print head, which you can see moving about, is moved around by stepper motors, and also the bed that it's printing on. There is a heated bed to help the plastic stick to it, and that is also moving backwards and forwards. So you get the 3 degree, you get an XYZ 3 degrees of movement to actually build up the object layer by layer.
So an additive process is literally you're adding things to something rather than like carving or something where you're
exactly, which is a subtractive process. You're scooping away, taking away. So this is building it up layer by layer. So with Fdm printing, when you look closely at the model, you can see the layer lines that are built up. You can see all the layers. It's not a quick process. The bodies of my puppets usually take about 4 hours to print. I can almost print, depending on the size of the object, I can almost print a puppet in a day, but not quite.
So is that 4 hours all in all, like the whole puppet, because you've got different components of it?
Yeah, no, to print a whole puppet, it will take about 18 hours to print a whole puppet.
Right.
It's dependent on the size, and it's also dependent on the amount of what you call infill, because you can tell the machine to either make them solid or hollow or any degree in between.
So what's inside have you got like a honeycomb?
Yes, it's like a mesh inside. I don't think I've got any half printed ones.
I do have a.
I only get half printed ones when I have mistakes. Oh yeah, that's one of the mistakes you do. You have to expect failures when you're 3D printing, especially when you're learning as well, and they can look quite disastrous and horrifying, some of the mistakes.
You can kind of see the honeycomb at the bottom of the.
Yeah, you can. So you can make that as dense or as open as you want, really, depending on how heavy you want the object.
Right. And the design process is obviously quite different, and has assumably involved learning computer-aided design. Could you talk a little bit about that?
That's right. Well, when I first started, I discovered a very simple online design software called Tinkercad, which is great fun to try. And that's basically using pre-made geometric shapes and joining those together, or you're even using those shapes to take away part from one part, take away from another. And that's quite a simple and fun program to use, but it does have its limitations, obviously. So I thought, for when I actually went into it wanting to actually print whole puppets, I thought I've got to learn a proper computer-aided design program. So I did lots of head scratching and watched lots of YouTube videos and did my best to learn Fusion 360. Which is a 3D, which can be a free software if you're not actually using it as a big manufacturing company and you're not using it to make loads of money. So it's free to hobbyists.
And this is Fusion, is it, on the?
That's Fusion 360. Yeah, it's very much like a technical drawing program. So you might start out with just the two-dimensional drawing on the screen, and then you kind of extrude it, you pull it out, and then you can draw on different surfaces that you create as well to actually cut bits out or add bits to it. It's not an easy program. I did do lots of head scratching over that one and nearly threw my computer out the window quite a few times when I was learning that. I'm very glad I've stuck with it.
That kind of pain threshold with software, and that sense of kind of having to push through it, and I just guess it's a very kind of different way of working than with traditional materials.
It is, and it feels like, to me, it almost feels like you're trying to manipulate a 3D object through a letterbox a little bit. But when you get an end result, when you get a successful result, in print in your hands that you've actually gone through the whole process of designing it. It's quite a magical moment, really,
Right.
and it's actually quite an addictive process as well. It's quite strange in that way.
Yeah. So we have a question that's come in. Do the parts come out rigid, as with Pelham's ware, or do they have some give? And that's from AC on Crowdcast.
Okay. Yes, they do come out rigid. I've got, but the way that the slicer software works is it actually generates material to support the object that you're printing. So I've got one of the bodies here. So there's the body, and if I turn it around, you can see that this material here has actually been generated to support that gap there, because of course you can't actually print in midair. So I'm struggling to get it into the camera, but then you can actually just break that off.
So satisfying.
but they do need a bit more cleaning up afterwards, because if I can get that onto the camera, where are we? There we are. You can see it's where the support material's been. It's a little bit rough around there, so that needs filing. Needs filing, a bit of sanding to get rid of those rough areas.
Wow. Yeah. So it's. Do you ever have to kind of? I remember with some 3D printing once we had to have these sort of chisels and kind of hacking away at the kind of support structures around it. You can be quite rough with it, actually. It's.
It can. I mean, it is surprisingly strong. I mean, I really thought when I first started, I was wondering if it was going to be strong enough, but for puppet making, it's well strong enough. And then the ability to print in different materials as well came as a real magical game changer for me, because all the joints now that I use for the Filabods are actually kind of like 2-pin. I actually use flexible joints that I print out of a material called TPU, and I've got oops, there we go. So that's one of the flexible joints. If I turn it sideways, you can see that it's all very, very flexible, which gives it a little tiny bit of spring, but also because of the shapes that I printed it in. Well, I'm going backwards. Oh, where are we? There we are. I've given it these little knobbles, which I've designed the hips. I've actually got there we go. Oh no. Okay. So like that slot there, that will just then slide in to that slot, making it very quick to assemble. But it gives a lovely natural movement as well. I found that's been a real game changer in my puppet making. I recently gave a marionette here up front new 3D printed legs as well, and it was lovely to have those flexible joints in there. Nice. You're much more practiced at showing it, Matt, than I am.
So you can see. So this is a 3D printed material in the middle here. You just literally print strips, and then the larger. Is it rivet or
It's all the same material, and that's a plastic called TPU, which is a very flexible material. It's quite a little bit tricky to print because you have to print it at a lot slower speed than regular filament, and you have to print it at a slightly hotter temperature as well. So I had to upgrade my machine a bit to be able to print those pieces.
But like you say, I mean, it's really got the kind of movement that it gives, and also you've got the movement here as well. It's got this really kind of, I guess, speaks to AC's question about this give, so the individual bits are rigid, but then you've got a really kind of pleasing mechanism to be able to move. So we've moved kind of seamlessly onto Filabods, but first we've got a question coming in. let me just turn my camera back, and then here we go. So what about the weight? Can you change it? Because the feet need to be small but heavy. And this is from Lilia on Crowdcast.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of puppeteers often ask about the weight of them. And it's, again, depending on the amount of infill that you give the parts, that varies the weight of them. What I've done with some of the marionettes is I've actually put lead weights, some little lead weights in the bottom of the feet. And what you find then is that if you make the feet too heavy, it throws the whole movement of the body out as well. So then you have to weight the hips as well. And what I was able to do with the hips on some of them was I created a cavity and then paused the print midway, inserted the weight into the cavity and then continued the print so that the weight was actually enclosed right within the hips.
So with this Filabod, and I think this was the first version, I don't think there's any particular weight in the feet themselves.
No, there's no weight in those ones. And I actually find in my marionettes, the marionettes I'm sending out as well now, they don't have weights in them. I don't find, for me, it's not necessary.
Right. Because the grip on the bottom there, that's just that's just kind of foam, is it?
Yeah, it's just a self-adhesive foam pads.
But yes, with a little bit of practice, it's a lot more about the kind of the rhythm almost, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I was really pleased with how those worked, and that is one of the great things about designing computer-aided design and 3D printing is that you can really explore what effect just moving a hole a couple of millimeters has on the movement. So I did lots of experimenting with those to actually get the right movement.
So this is So this is the first kind of version, and the handle 3D printed as well. Is that correct?
It is. Yes. Yeah. The main rod that's kind of going up through his middle is actually a recycled tent pole that I picked up at a festival because people were throwing tents away.
This one here.
Yeah.
And then you've got is it fishing wire as well?
Yeah, fishing line going through the hips. And the thing I like about those tabletop ones is that both the head control and the leg control is all in the one place that you do with your thumb. So you've got the nodding and the leg movement all in one place.
Right. Yeah. It's because you could do two fairly easily as well. Like it being able to control it just with one hand like this is quite beneficial. But let me come back to this because that was the first version. And am I right? You there was you made it for a puppeteer in a wheelchair.
That's right. It was for Karina Dunn in Ireland, who's in a wheelchair, and yeah, she'd actually been to visit me and seen some of my other designs of puppets and my sort of rod marionettes and really liked them. And she prompted me and asked me if I could design her a lightweight tabletop puppet so that she could operate it actually on her wheelchair. So this was the result of that. Very big thank you to her because then she encouraged me to put them up for sale. I thought, people really want to buy them, and I was astounded at the response. It was just great. So I've had orders from all over the world, and and then I moved on to developing the marionette version. Right. Although interestingly enough, I had done a marionette previously, but I took the ideas that I developed for the original tabletop one and then incorporated them into the marionettes, like the double pivoting joints on the knees there. So so you get a really wide range of movements, and on the arms you get a much bigger range of movement than with a traditional kind of carved marionette joint.
So the specific thing there is you have an extra piece in between the two, the upper and lower leg.
Yeah, it's got two pivot points rather than just the one.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, showing the wrong one. So there we go.
Fab.
Yeah, and then a few people have picked up on the marionettes as well. Josh McCowell in Corby, he was running some online workshops over lockdown, and he thought that putting together these marionettes would be a great activity for his attendees, and he actually bought 30, which kept my printers busy for about three months. Because, as I say, it's not a quick process.
Right.
Which was just so lovely, and I was so chuffed to get that. And but then there's been a few other people that have had them as well, and puppeteers that have had them as well. And Anna Ingleby of Indigo Moon, she's put together her new show is actually using Filabods, and she's using a tabletop and a marionette in that show, and the way she moves them is absolutely beautiful as well. She does a great job.
Yeah, so Seed Heart was part of the Scratch stream last week. So if you missed that, you can catch up on the video on our YouTube channel. But it's nice, the lovely way that Anna uses them is for different purposes. So when there's the puppet in the jar, it really lends itself to a marionette. And then when a puppet is kind of an observer and looking around, it lends itself to the handheld. So while we're on that, actually, should we go to your Filapods? Because you can buy Filapods yourself if you're interested. Filapods.com.
Yes, yeah. There's a shop that I'm adding to slowly. I'm also offering a hand printing service because I can now design hands. I've been experimenting with another software that's more sculptural as well.
I see. So as you were saying with the kits, so like putting these together can be like a fun activity. So you can buy the kind of different parts and then put them together, or you can have an assembled kit. That's
right. Yes. Yeah, and I'm also selling the upright controls that I've developed recently. Stan at the Puppet Barge, he contacted me because they run marionette manipulation classes, and he was worried that their marionettes that they use on the Puppet Barge were going to get damaged from running these classes. So he contacted me and said, could I provide some marionettes? So I worked on a slightly bigger version because the original fillable marionette is quite small, same size as the tabletop. So I've now developed a slightly larger one. And I asked Stan if he wanted me to develop the same sort of control that they use on the barge. So he sent me drawings and dimensions, and I worked with him, and we've actually, replicated the control that they use on the barge. I did make a couple of little modifications on my own. It's actually got the leg bar is actually detachable, so which it is on theirs, but I've also provided it with a rocking mechanism, so you can do a one-handed walk with it if you want.
So the leg bar is the top bar here. Yeah. Great. And so, were you saying that the Puppet Barge marionettes? So the original marionettes are the same size as the original Filabods that we just displayed, but did you scale up slightly for the work you've been doing with the barge?
Yes, yeah. My original one was smaller than the ones that they're using on the barge, so they wanted a similar size. So I've scaled them up for them, and I am going to do a bigger one as well. I've got a bigger one.
Yes, I noticed. Is this bigger still than the barge puppet?
This one's about 75 centimeters high. What I did with this one, he's still kind of in development. I didn't see any point actually printing the whole length of the legs and the arms. So what I've done with these ones is use plastic pipe and then develop the joints so that they can be inserted into the pipe. So that cuts down the printing time as well. I'm not selling the big ones yet, but I'm going to get around.
Watch this space. So we have another question from AC on Crowdcast, who asks, have you ever had issues with hinge pins?
Interestingly enough, yes.
So what are hinge pins, first of all?
Well, the actual little pins that are holding the joints together, I believe. I actually use the filament itself, and I make the hole the right diameter to push the filament through to hold the joints together. And I suggest actually deforming the filament a little bit so that it grips in the hole. I took my medium-sized Filabod out at the Pride event on Saturday, and I was walking it around, and the foot fell off. Unfortunately, so I hadn't quite squeezed that filament tight enough to make it a tight fit in the hole. But again, obviously you can just put a little blob of super glue on it if they do work loose as well. I thought maybe I should do that, and maybe I should say that you can do that, but that's the only time that it's happened to me, that they've actually worked its way out. And I was jiggling it around, dancing to all the DJs playing for probably about an hour and a half, and then before that happened.
They are pretty robust little. I mean, it's almost with those materials, it's like, this will never break. So you kind of take some more liberties with it, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they are pretty tough. What I did, I think one time I did have some slightly dodgy filament, I think, and I found that the layer lines didn't stick together. They weren't sticking together quite well enough, and when I put one of the hinge pins in, it actually forced the layer lines apart a little bit. But I think that was a problem with the filament. You do very occasionally get a bad roll of filament.
So just before we wrap up, and if you've got any final questions, this is your last chance to ask Nik, so please do get them in. I just wanted to ask you about Goldilocks.
Yeah, that was a tremendous project, a commission that we did over lockdown for Norwich Puppet Theatre. They got the rights to the Roald Dahl Revolting Rhymes series, and they asked puppeteers to choose one and produce a video. Unfortunately, we can't show it with the words because the words are copyright, and we only had the rights up until last Christmas. But I used that as an excuse to develop my CAD skills, and made more kind of sculptural type puppets, and developed these Czech style rod marionettes that I was quite happy with. And I even printed a lot of the set as well, like the window frame that you see there, the table, the chair, the whole staircase that you probably see in a second. That was all 3D printed, and I just went mad and designed everything that I could possibly do on the computer and printed it out because I used it because I wanted to learn how to do it.
Yeah. So Goldilocks is quite adapted in terms of like the body size, but is it still the basis of the Filabod?
No, it was a completely different design for that really that I developed.
But you can see it's just nice to see the different kind of shapes that are possible as well through the.
Yeah, and as I say, I've been trying my hand at more kind of sculptural software as well. So this character, I don't know if this was one of the heads that I made recently, just to try out the software really. And I think people with much better computer sculpting skills than I've got will probably come along and develop some wonderful looking creations. But I like to think I've probably got the edge on the movement aspect of things.
Right. But you can, there's the aesthetic things that you can kind of add to it as well. But yes,
because what I discovered which was great, was I could take my original design, the Filabod original design, import it into the ZBrush software, and then actually sculpt on top of that on the computer. so that all the actual mechanics, the workings, and all the fitting of it was all the same. So it would work perfectly, but was more sculpted, which was great.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's got a really nice quality, that kind of sculpted plastic. So we've got a couple of questions that have come in. So have you ever thought about making a talking 3D printed puppet? And that's from Lil Yana on Crowdcast.
I have thought about it. I have considered sort of finding a ventriloquist person to work with and ask their advice, because I don't tend to do moving mouth puppets myself very much. Obviously, there's designs around that I could copy, but I think at some point I would like to work with a ventriloquist to design something that's probably an advancement to the traditional design. I did. I've got a little one here that I did with moving eyes. Here we go. And so if I turn it around, the mechanism is very simple. Really, it's just a string with a bit of silicon tube to provide the spring to bring it back into position. So, and that was quite fun. So I might actually put. I don't know about moving mouth so much, but maybe moving eyes I'm going to develop into the puppets.
Nice. You've got some lovely mechanisms through there. So, and then a final question, I think. Have you ever considered trying out resin printers?
Yeah, well, yes. I haven't tried them yet, but the attraction of the resin printer is that you get a much higher definition, a much better finish of them, which if you're doing stuff for video, obviously is a really good thing. Up until now, I've wanted my parts to be sort of more functional than aesthetically perfect, if you like. So, but the resin printing, yeah, it looks a fascinating process, and it looks quite weird because it kind of comes out of this vat of liquid upside down, and it's a process where the resin is cured by UV light, and it just kind of like seems to appear out of nowhere, out of this liquid, and that looks quite fascinating. Although, I mean, the chemicals, I suppose, are a little bit off-putting, but I mean, as a puppet maker, I've worked with some pretty horrible chemicals in the past anyway. So yeah, I am tempted to get a resin printer.
It's possibly, it's possibly a bit more expensive. I don't quite know.
A little bit, although looking at prices of the ones on the screen, they're not too much more expensive, really.
Yeah, but like you say, it's kind of tangible with a kind of desktop printer. You can kind of see what it's doing, but there's a kind of air of mystery about the kind of overnight. You shut it away, and then it comes out as this. So, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say even the FDM, the printing with printing the spools of plastic, it's a fascinating process to watch when you're just watching it building up the layers, and you kind of sit there staring at it and think, wow, look at that. That's amazing.
Well, Nik, it's been such a joy having you and talking about.
It's been great to talk about what I love doing. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You've got, is it a Facebook group that, or that's for like owners of Filabods, I guess?
It is for owners of Filabods. Yeah, there's a Filabods page on Facebook.
Exclusive club. But if you're interested, again, the webpage filabods.com, lots of information there. You've got a blog as well. That's exciting.
Yeah. I've been trying to add to it. I'm not. I do so many different things that I sometimes let things like that lapse a little bit, so I'm not on it the whole time, unfortunately.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Nik, and also check out Nik's other company, Noisy Oyster, at noisyoyster.co.uk.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you very much for joining us all today. If you enjoyed the talk, then please do help us cover the costs of running our event by making a donation. The link to donate is movingpartsarts.com/donate, or you can click the handy donate here button if you're joining us on Crowdcast. Suggested donation for this event is £8, but please give whatever you can afford. Every little bit counts, and we cannot fund this work without your support. Thank you so much, and see you next time.